Would you bow with me? God Most High, may we gather here today with a spirit of humility, in recognizing the gifts we have been given and the opportunities afforded to each of us. May you place in our hearts a desire to labor for our common good, that we would not seek our own interest, but the interest of others, that in a world all too often stricken by pain and by grief, you would grant us a loving spirit, to bear the burdens of our brothers and sisters, to embody the hope that lies in the fellowship and the community you establish. In these times when evil begets fear in our midst, let us hold fast to our conviction that tribulation is but for a season, that a day will come when justice will prevail, and that the hurt borne by humanity will cease as a new day dawns. Until then, let us work towards the betterment of ourselves and enjoy the fruits of our labor. Amen.
You may be seated. Good morning. My name is Elizabeth McLeod Walls. I am privileged to be the 15th president of William Jewell College, and I am honored to stand before this great audience, knowing we all have one thing in common: our love for William Jewell College and our belief in the people who make this such a fine academic institution. Thank you for coming together with us to mark the official opening of the school year. Today's convocation marks the 36th year of recognizing community service and leadership by adding a class of William F. Yates medallion recipients. This tradition began in 1980 at the inauguration of Jewell's 12th president, Dr. Gordon Kingsley. That first class of Yates medalists included 12 servant leaders who changed Kansas City in such lasting ways that we continue to benefit from the fruits of their service. Since then, 175 exemplary individuals have been honored on this stage. The William F. Yates Medallion for Distinguished Service Recipients build businesses, create charitable foundations, stand up for the underserved, teach our youth, and promote the arts. They give their energy and resources to make Kansas City one of the nation's great communities, and to pave the way for our students who are on the cusp of becoming the next generation of leaders. As I call your names, would past Yates Medallion honorees please stand to be recognized? We will hold our applause until all have been introduced. Ray Brock. Alvin Brooks. Jill Dean. Marshall Dean. John Dillingham. Patty Garney. Anita Gorman. Beth Ingram. Joan Israelite. Dan Lambert. Barbara Nelson. Ken Schaefer. Roswitha Schaefer. Betsy Solberg. Dub Steincross. Don Wagner. Jean Wagner. Thank you all for making this a thriving community we're proud to call home. William Jewell College is comprised of students who are diverse, service-minded, entrepreneurial, and passionate. They learn from us, They teach us, and we all grow together. Each new school year begins with the promise of possibilities and the thoughtful reflection on our achievements. What follows are just a few examples of some remarkable achievements by students and faculty in the past year. The Jewell community contributed more than 82,000 hours of service last year, both in local neighborhoods and in countries throughout the world. This number is an all-time high for service hours and is indicative of the values our campus places on putting others before ourselves. In May, the second class of students in our graduate program received their Master of Education degree in differentiated instruction and right this minute are effecting change in classrooms using the knowledge and tools that they acquired here. Last fall, Jewell was named an Apple Distinguished School for Excellence in Innovation, Creativity, and Leadership. Very few colleges receive this designation, not just in the United States, but also across the globe. Jewell continues to build on its sophisticated integration of technology through the student experience in and outside of the classroom. And just a few weeks ago, we welcomed our first civil engineering majors to Jewell. The program's environmental, lead-oriented emphasis offered within a dynamic liberal arts setting will prepare students to address critical global issues such as clean water and renewable energy for generations to come. The student experience is central to everything we do at William Jewell. Our emphasis on achievement, critical thinking, creative thinking, experiential learning, and leadership development has been consistently recognized by Forbes, Kiplinger's Personal Finance, U.S. News and World Report, and the Princeton Review. The faculty, staff, and students, who are the core of this institution, are noticed nationally as well. Students such as Michaela Roller, who received the Visiting Student Prize at Oxford University's Mansfield College. David Hansen and Caitlin Johnson, who were the National Parliamentary Debate Association National Champions. And Trevor Nix, who co-founded a biotech company and spent the summer in Ireland with a biotech business accelerator and presenting research on sustainable business at Cambridge University. It's also professors such as Dr. Lori Wetmore and Dr. Patrick Bunton who lead service learning projects in the third world, as well as here in Kansas City, igniting in people and our students a passion for sustainable change. There are many more examples of achievement that demonstrate Jewell's uniqueness and our students' true greatness. Our Board of Trustees underscores our students' achievements through their own deep commitment to the strength and future of Jewell as Kansas City's liberal arts college. Please allow me to introduce members of the board who are with us this morning. Trustees of Jewell, as I call your names, please stand. Please hold applause until all of our trustees have been recognized. Julius Anderson, Gary Barnes, Patty Garney, John Gill, Jason Houseworth, Jason Klum, Karen Mathis, Jim McCrossan, Diane Shoemaker, Debbie Smith, Joy Steincross, Buzz Willard. Thank you all for joining us today. Part of what makes the Jewell experience enriching for our students is its location. And here to help us celebrate William Jewell's long relationship with the Liberty community is City Council member and William Jewell class of 1988, Greg Duncan.
Dr. McLeod-Walls, trustees, faculty, William Jewell College community, I am pleased and honored to bring you greetings from the City of Liberty. I want to extend a special welcome to our first-year students and transfer students and international students. Nicely done on your choice. And though I'm technically here as a city council member, I'm kind of here as the grandson of the 11th president of William Jewell College, and in that regard, I'm delighted to welcome Dr. Walls and her family to Jewell and especially to the city of Liberty. Our city was founded by a visionary group of settlers in 1829. 20 years later, in 1849, our college was founded by another group of visionaries. That was a really good couple of decades. I say our because Liberty and William Jewell have been inexorably linked for 167 years. I say our city because Liberty is where those of us in this room live and work and play each day. And I say our college because William Jewell is where those of us in this room find an identity, find a challenge, and find growth. My wife Amy and I graduated from William Jewell, as did our current mayor, Lyndall Brenton. And in fact, the two Liberty mayors before him are also graduates of William Jewell. Mayor Brenton is sorry to miss this important occasion, but he and his wife Roxanne, also a William Jewell grad, send you greetings from Europe. They're actually in Edinburgh, Scotland today, having just finished a mission trip to Romania. Our city, like our college, has that rare combination of a well-guarded heritage and also a well-positioned future. Just take a look at the historic Liberty Square. You know, the one you had to go around because you couldn't get through it to get here this morning? That's the perfect example of honoring the past by planning for the future. Sometimes it's messy work, but it's well worth it. My mother was fond of telling me, bloom where you are planted. William Jewell is a good place. It ought to be a better place because you were here. The city of Liberty, too, is a good place, and it, too, ought to be a better place because you were here. So I know, students, you didn't choose Liberty, you chose William Jewell. Our daughter, Emily, got engaged on Saturday. Her fiancé chose her, but he got us. And that's a good thing. So when you chose Jewell, which was a very wise choice indeed, you also got Liberty. And I'm very glad that you did. We look forward to continuing our very long partnership between the city and the college and wish you the very best in the academic year ahead.
Thank you, Greg. As you were giving this warm message of being a great place and good neighbors, I was reminded we were neighbors.
Yes, we were.
Small, wonderful town. Great. Good morning. I am honored this morning to recognize the William Jewell College faculty, a distinguished body of scholars who have chosen a most honorable profession and are dedicated to inspiring lifelong learners. I would like to introduce new colleagues who joined us this fall. You can learn more about them by referencing the back page of your program. As I call their names, I would like each to stand and remain standing. Dr. Beth Hazels, Assistant Professor of Business. Dr. Will Lindquist, Assistant Professor of Civil Engineering. Dr. Amy McDonald, Assistant Professor of Nursing, and Dr. Clayton Stevenson, Assistant Professor of Psychology. Please join me in welcoming these new members of our faculty. These new faculty join an esteemed group of colleagues. I would like to introduce two of those faculty members to you. Since 1992, the college has awarded the Carl F. Willard Distinguished Teacher Award, which annually recognizes outstanding service in the classroom among the William Jewell College faculty. This year's recipient is Dr. Kenneth Alpern, the Oxbridge Honors Program Senior Tutor and Professor of Philosophy. As a part of his award, he will present a lecture on campus this year. Dr. Alpern, will you please stand for our recognition? Dr. Alpern, thank you for your commitment to Jewell, for offering an exceptional learning experience for your students, and for modeling excellence in teaching for the rest of us. In 2009, the Spencer Family Sabbatical Fellowship was started with the generous support of alumni Dr. Bill Spencer and his wife, Joan Cheryl Spencer. This program provides a full-year sabbatical to a Jewell faculty member to honor the excellent teaching and mentoring the Spencers experienced at Jewell. The competitive honor is intended to foster that same experience for other Jewell students by enhancing the teaching and mentoring capabilities of the Jewell faculty, as well as promoting scholarly achievement. This fall, we welcome back last year's recipient, Dr. Jennifer Cotter, Associate Professor of English. During her sabbatical, Dr. Cotter completed a book manuscript in feminist cultural theory and the relationship of gender, sexuality, and cultural difference to the global division of labor. In October, she will present her research at a conference in Vienna, Austria, that brings together scholars from the global North and the global South to discuss feminism and global inequity in the 21st century. Dr. Cotter, would you please stand for recognition of your success as a mentor and scholar? And now would the entire faculty please stand and face the student body. Representing the heart of this institution, the faculty members standing before you comprise a community of scholars who are dedicated to their students and profession, embodying the essence of lifelong learning and committed to open, rigorous intellectual pursuits. Students, in this academic year, we pledge to challenge you intellectually so that you may become more capable thinkers, communicators, problem solvers, and the leaders in the world awaiting you. Please join me in recognizing the faculty of William Jewell College.
I am honored to introduce one of William Jewell's most prestigious academic scholarship awards. The Yates Scholarship was created in recognition of the William F. Yates Medallion for Distinguished Service and the vital connection the college enjoys with the Kansas City community. To support students who will one day assume these leadership roles in their own cities, the Yates Medallion recipients helped fund this 4-year renewable scholarship. Of the many promising members of the first-year class with outstanding academic profiles and a proven commitment to community service, Sophia Arthurs Shoppe and Clayton Mansell were selected as the 2016 Yates Scholars. Sophia is a half German and half New Zealander international student who graduated high school early in New Zealand, then received an international baccalaureate scholarship to study for 2 years in Israel. She has organized and been involved in a variety of peace and development conferences in Israel, journalistic pursuits in Europe, and humanitarian work in Southeast Asia. Sophia was selected for our renowned Oxbridge Honors Program and will study Oxbridge history of ideas and chemistry. Clayton is from Springfield, Missouri. He was a student leader in music programs at Republic High School, including being drum major of the marching band and lead French horn player for the symphonic band. He coordinated service projects as a National Honor Society officer and is a chapter leader for Enable, a global volunteer organization that uses 3D printing to provide prosthetic hands to children throughout the world. A student in our Oxbridge Honors Program, Clayton chose molecular biology as his major in order to use science to help others. Sophia and Clayton On behalf of 175 Yates medalists and William Jewell College, I am pleased to award you the Yates Scholar Medal. For 36 years, William Jewell has recognized Kansas Cityans who make this a great community through selfless leadership and service. Today, we honor two servant leaders who have made their own mark on the community and are worthy role models for the entirety of the Jewell student body. We begin the recognition of our honorees with Judge Fernando Gaitan Jr. to be presented by Ms. Carol Marinovich, herself a 2005 Yates medalist.
It's a real honor and pleasure to be able to present Judge Gaitan to you this morning. Standing in honor of Judge Gaitan are his wife Sylvia, if you could please stand, daughter Javier, their son Fernando III, his nephew Mario Gaitan, his esteemed colleague, Chief Judge Gregory Case, and his daughter Sloan, a junior elementary education major here at Jewell, his friend from Los Angeles, Samuel Gaines III, and his friends from Lee Summit, Everidge and Janice Cade, and Randall Ferguson. Thank you. Judge Fernando J. Gaitan Jr. was the first African-American appointee to the United States District Court for the Western District of Missouri in 1991. After his 7-year term as Chief Judge ended in 2014, he took on his current status as Senior Judge. Before joining the Western District, he served as a trial judge for the 16th Judicial Court in Kansas City and a judge for the Missouri Court of Appeals. Fernando, the first in his family to go to college, graduated from Pittsburgh State University in 1970 with bachelor's degrees in biology and psychology. Encouraged by work with the Kansas City youth organization, YPALS, he earned his Juris Doctorate from the University of Missouri, Kansas City. His career began in the 1970s as the in-house counsel for Southwestern Bell Telephone Company, believing it was crucial to have minority attorneys doing good work in corporate settings. In addition to his work on the bench and in the courtroom, he has served on many community boards, including the Kansas City Science Museum, the National Conference of Christian and Jews, the University of Missouri Kansas City Board of Trustees, the De La Salle Alternative School, and St. Luke's Hospital. As the only minority representative on those boards, he sought to bring more diverse views to the table and to show others a positive image of minority leaders. He has received honors from several Kansas City organizations and has been inducted in the Missouri Walk of Fame. And I must add, I am personally very proud because he was also born and raised in Kansas City, Kansas, my hometown. And I couldn't leave this podium without mentioning that very fact. Dr. McLeod-Walls, on behalf of the William Jewell Board of Trustees, I am pleased to present Judge Fernando Gaitan Jr. for the William F. Yates Medallion for Distinguished Service.
Recognizing honoree Mrs. Sarah Rowland is Mr. Jonathan Kemper, a 2004 recipient of the Yates medallion.
Thank you, and similar to Mayor Marinovich, I would like to recognize at this time the guests of the honoree. If you'll stand as I mentioned: Stephen Hill, Marcia Hill, Josh Rowland, Guy Townsend, Eliza Townsend, Nancy Lee Kemper, Paul Hamilton, Charles Sosland, Jeannie Sosland, Morton Sosland, and Estelle Sosland. Thank you for coming. We very much appreciate your time. A lifelong Missourian, Sarah Fiddler Rowland has shaped, enriched, and bridged Kansas City's worlds of art, culture, and business since 1962, when she and Landon first made their home here. Sarah is a native of Moberly, Missouri, and a graduate of Smith College, where she earned a bachelor's degree in English literature. Prior to coming to Kansas City, she worked in New York for Condé Nast and in Cambridge, Massachusetts for the Harvard University Press. Her personal interests are both broad and deep and include music, literature, art, and architecture, and stretch to include a variety of endeavors in the breeding and training of American saddle-bred horses. She's been deeply involved in the leadership of a multitude of the major civic and cultural organizations in our community. She has served as a trustee of the Nelson Atkins Museum of Art and a board chair there for 5 years. She's also served on the boards of the Kansas City Symphony, the Kansas City Ballet, the Kansas City Landmarks Commission, and the vestry of Grace and Holy Trinity Cathedral. She has been active in the American Royal Association, which she served for 20 years as the chair of the UPHA American Royal Horse Show, creating the partnership in 2010 between the American Royal and the United Professional Horsemen's Association. In the world of business, Sarah served as the director and now chair of Lead Bank, a business-focused community bank. In 1987, Sarah and Landon moved to unincorporated Clay County and began the process of restoring the beautiful antebellum property known since 1832 as Everglades Farm. No stranger to Jewell, Sarah and her late husband Landon have been longtime supporters of the Harriman Jewell Performing Arts Series and have been regular contributors to Jewell's Achievement Day. In 2000, Bill Nelson presented Landon with his Yates medallion on this very stage. Dr. McLeod-Walls, on behalf of the William Jewell College Board of Trustees, I am pleased to present Mrs. Sarah Rowland for the William F. Yates Medallion for Distinguished Service.
Thank you again, Yates medalists, for leading by example, for giving so much of yourselves to make our community stronger. Judge Gaetan, Mrs. Rowland, would you please stand one more time so we can again express our thanks for your leadership. It is a privilege to introduce today's speaker in her first public address since being named the 15th president of William Jewell College. Dr. Elizabeth McLeod-Walls joined the Jewell family on July 1st and had settled into the president's home on campus with her husband, the Reverend Dr. Craig McLeod-Walls, and their son, Alec and John. In fact, Craig, if you would please stand, we would like to see the first husband, the first gentleman of William Jewell College. Craig, thank you. And please extend our welcome to both Alec and John. We're glad to have you a part of our community. In the last 2 months, Elizabeth has spent a great deal of time becoming acquainted not just with William Jewell and the faculty and students, but also with our stakeholders, our friends, the people that love William Jewell College like we do. Dr. McLeod-Walls comes to us from Lincoln, where she most recently held academic and senior leadership roles at Nebraska Wesleyan University and Bryan College of Health Sciences. She earned her PhD in English literature and classical rhetoric with highest distinction from TCU, her Bachelor of Arts degree in English, History, Phi Beta Kappa from Hiram College. Passionate about the intersections among literature, history, rhetoric, and women's writing, she is the co-author of 3 books and several refereed articles. She has completed several higher education leadership programs, including the Harvard Seminars on Leadership. Named 40 under 40 by the Lincoln Journal-Star in 2012, she is among the youngest college presidents in the United States and the first woman to serve as president of William Jewell College. Let's welcome Dr. McLeod-Walls as she delivers our.
So much. In the middle of July, I left this beautiful, soft place on a hill, those highly burnished early days of my presidency at William Jewell College, to go to Harvard. I'm fortunate to know Cambridge well. I've spent time there, engaged in seminars on a variety of topics related to leadership and higher education. And so in returning this past summer, I will admit to adopting a little swagger. I strolled down John F. Kennedy Avenue like a native, smiling in knowing fashion at the many conference participants collared by their swaying name tags, and anticipating my first day as part of the Harvard Seminar for New Presidents with a sense of confidence. Some would argue, and persuasively, that college presidents as a breed are overly confident. Confidence is wellspring for our vision and understanding, and conversely, our Lethe, that mythical river in Hades that allows those who drink from it to experience total forgetfulness and willful self-delusion. You're laughing a little too hard at that. Opting for the former definition of presidential confidence, I arrived at New President's Camp at Harvard, brimming with the surety of one who feels called to her new position. A president whose lifeblood is education and who knows that Jewell and she are meant to walk the path of our shared future together. Within hours of arriving at the first class, however, my confident facade changed. It didn't diminish so much as absent itself for a time. Refreshing in its honesty, the New President's Seminar cultivates an ethos of trust. That's its currency. We all were new. We all were energized by this or that, or unsure of how to manage X or Y. And it didn't matter if it was Dr. Drew Faust, the president of Harvard, who in her address to us on the first evening confesses that she gets it wrong about 10% of the time, or the new president of a very large land-grant institution who leaned over one afternoon and said to me, "I don't have the first clue on how to engage in government relations effectively." All of us, the great and the near great and the not so great, were grappling with the enormity of our job description, and the only real bulwark against apprehension that we had was hope. Hope. I often have heard my husband say from the pulpit that the opposite of faith is not unbelief, but rather fear. From this sacred pulpit within the heart of our college, our bold experiment in higher education up here on the Hill, I would preach to you today that the opposite of ignorance is not education, it is hope. It is the hope that people can change. It is the hope that systems can change. It is the hope that inequity will wither and justice will flourish. It is hope not simply for our present moment, but also for our undiscovered future. And to have hope that education matters, that what we do in the world is noble and justified, is, in my view, synonymous with courage. For courage is the closest cousin to hope and cannot exist without it. Dr. Mark English was among the 58 new presidents with me at the Harvard seminar. Mark was attending from overseas, in his case, Afghanistan, where he is the president of the American University there. A graduate of West Point with a PhD in foreign language education and Arabic studies from the University of Texas, Mark is affable and good-hearted, expert but unpretentious, always ready with a joke, and his favorite one was, "If any of you knows a VP for advancement who wants to move to Afghanistan, I'm hiring." Clark, don't even think about it. His stories about women in burqas playing basketball, first-generation scholars seeking an education in their home country, and the cultural bridges built between the university and Kabul resonated with all of us and reminded us that hope is indeed the root of courage. This link between hope and courage that Mark exemplifies was made all too real for us when, on August 20th, 2016, 22 days ago, my friend's university was attacked by militants who not only abhor the education of girls and women, but also reject the idea that education changes lives and therefore changes families and communities, changes countries, changes the world. During the assault, students barricaded themselves in classrooms to save their own lives, while the university's security and the U.S. military mobilized to free hostages, students, faculty. My friend watched as free, lively educational discourse dwindled nearly to nothing at the saber tip of violence. The smoke rose off the streets and military police formed a perimeter around the university. 12 people, including 7 students, perished. Secretary Kerry denounced the attack as a cowardly assault on talented and motivated scholars. When several of us reached out to Mark after the attack, he thanked us for our concern but insisted that their work would continue immediately. He told us that he was prepared to manage similar assaults in the future because, in his words, the American University in Afghanistan is a lasting legacy and will not be deterred from its mission. Mark is that devoted, that hopeful, that sure of the impact of education on students' lives and therefore on Afghanistan as a whole. Yet when I read this, I knew, all of us from that hubris-filled Harvard class knew that through his heroism, Mark was choosing to ignore those day-by-day, hour-by-hour crises that prevent women, men, the citizens of Afghanistan from being educated. And his endurance stems from his belief that education is our only true bulwark against smallness, myopia, fear. It is also our only true measurement of hope. Days after the attack, and with Mark's experience still fresh in our minds, I contacted my colleagues from Harvard, asking how we could overlay the experience at AUAF onto our own contexts, to think together about how courage manifests in higher education. Over and again, my colleagues' responses conflated hope and wisdom with courage. The courage of a student to stand alongside their otherwise invisible peers during moments of injustice on their campuses, or the courage of a faculty member to explore ideas or texts that some powerful entity had condemned as immoral. I myself thought of the inherent optimism of J.E. Dunn Construction here in Kansas City and members of our Fiji fraternity, who cleaned debris, rebuilt structures, and housed homeless students in the days following the 2003 tornado that ravaged our campus. Certainly, these are examples of courage at Jewell and elsewhere that remind us of the importance of selflessness and creativity in the face of injustice or censorship or destruction. Yet as I heard my colleagues' responses and thought more deeply about Mark's ongoing struggles to keep the doors of his university open to all who wish to learn, I realized that there was something overarching to our experience, our galvanizing mission that bespeaks the hope of the world, the inherent purpose of the human endeavor. It is the courage of higher education itself. Higher education as a hopeful response to fear, ignorance, and oppression that caused my friend Mark to stand his ground and that has brought every one of us to this historic campus here today. The analogy I would draw is to something we all believe to be sacred, our duty as citizens of this democracy. Just as our ultimate obligation as citizens is to be willing to lay down our lives in defense of those whose free speech rankles and offends us, so too is the ultimate obligation of higher education to defend with our endowments, our reputations, our enrollments, the very souls of our institutions, the right of all people to seek and to gain wisdom. Let me be clear. Wisdom is distinct from knowledge. Gaining wisdom requires a different sort of grit than does accumulating information, and yet everything in our culture right now is telling you and me and the parents of prospective students and my two beautiful boys and my fellow presidents from the Harvard seminar that acquiring an education should be easy. Those of us teaching and learning within small private colleges know that the notion of the liberal arts scare the heck out of people. This isn't because our society is unclear as to what a liberal education entails. Rather, the popular culture attaches an obscurity to what we do that purposefully elides the connection between our curriculum and its relevance in the world. The sing-songy and predictable notion that a philosophy major can't possibly achieve any higher vocation than barista at the Bucks is fallacious, certainly, but it's also caught on as a modern-day idiom. And it has fueled this popular belief that it's better to choose a school that eschews philosophy majors altogether than it is to learn how to think, communicate, problem solve, affect change, and find fulfillment as a human being. These experiences require everything from us, an entire lifetime of energy and discipline and a commitment to personal growth. The alternative to acquiring wisdom, collecting knowledge as disparate facts, is not, let me assure you, the approach to education that motivated militants to attack my friend's university. I have spent the last 2 months visiting with leaders in Kansas City and beyond, learning about their perceptions of Jewell and mining their thoughts on possibilities for our future. With frequency, these successful business people are telling me that they need more Jewell alumni working for them. An executive at one of the largest companies in the United States told me that Jewell graduates are the finest thinkers, communicators, and visionaries he's ever had the chance to employ. Our much maligned philosophy major, who, by the way, at Jewell is probably double majoring in physics and playing for the softball team when she isn't in Honduras working with Village Partners, is one of the 99% of our students who are employed in meaningful work or attending graduate school within 6 months of earning their degree. Georgetown University's Center on Education and the Workforce released a study in 2015 showing that students who experience a broad and challenging education will earn more over the course of their lifetime than students who were not as liberally educated. Their soft skills or ability to communicate and think well in all settings are much more refined. And students at institutions that foster higher level thinking, students at Jewell, be they in philosophy or in our civil engineering program launched this fall, are more likely to earn advanced degrees facilitating original research that ultimately improves lives. But I would go a step further than Georgetown's quantitative study with this admittedly subjective observation. Institutions of higher learning that strive for their students to gain wisdom and not simply knowledge or skills are institutions that welcome and expect difficulty. Wisdom cannot arise from a life devoid of challenge, quite the opposite. We who are living through a time when higher education is maligned as out of reach or out of touch, or worse, irrelevant, must recognize that diminishing the importance of what we do puts us at risk of elevating matter over substance. As Alice Walker sees it, if you want to have a life that's worth living, a life that expresses your deepest feelings and emotions and cares and dreams, you got to fight for it. Wisdom means fighting hard for an enriching, troubling, ambiguous, illuminating, beautiful educational experience, and, my friends, also caring about and investing in it. That's what we practice here. So it cannot be a surprise in the end that Jewell, which requires our students to work through what it means to be human, was led for 16 years by a man who exemplifies the courage of higher education for me and for everyone in this room. Dr. David Sallee's graceful determination to do the very hard thing, to, in his words, expect our college to address any and all topics with confidence in the academic freedom we enjoy, a claim he made despite the very real threat of losing funding from the Missouri Baptist Convention, came about because Jewell is a place that believes that true wisdom emerges through one's exposure to ideas that both mimic and deconstruct what we think we believe, what we think we know, and who we think we are. It is his abiding faith in this very good and hard work of acquiring wisdom that has encouraged Mark English in his vocation, and all of us here today as we pause to reflect upon another academic year at Jewell. I encourage you to consider your own participation here, honoring these 4 inspiring Yates medallion recipients and our legacy of teaching and learning at Jewell as in itself an act of courage. It is the very thing that militants in Afghanistan are trying to silence, and the very thing that my predecessor and friend fought to protect at this transformational place up on a hill. I urge you to leave here with me today feeling the impetus to pronounce the essential hope of what we do, or in the words of James Joyce's ubiquitous protagonist, Stephen Dedalus, seeking wisdom always against the backdrop of doubt. I go to encounter for the millionth time the reality of experience and to forge in the smithy of my soul the uncreated conscience of my race. My friends, this is the courage of higher education, and it is our calling as citizens of the world to uphold it. Thank you. And thank you all for celebrating with us today as we have begun this new year, committed to learning and growing together and serving this great community.
In benediction, receive these words from farmer and poet Wendell Berry. It may be that when we no longer know what to do, we have come to our real work. And when we no longer know which way to go, we have begun our real journey. The mind that is not baffled is not employed. The impeded stream is the one that sings. Amen.